Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for Thursday, November 17th, week 11 in the NFL. We got a lot to unpack here, a lot of crazy matchups, a lot of injuries, a lot of key injuries around the league that is making setting lineups particularly tricky this week. So we are going to unpack all of that and more as we march through every single matchup on the slate. Stay tuned. Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast brought to you by our friends over at No House Advantage. I'm your host, John McKechnie, joined, as always, by Mario Puig. Mario, how are you doing on this here fine Thursday?
I don't know. Kind of a big stink ball, to be honest with you. Gotta probably cut my hair soon, but I just haven't done it, and now I'm kind of like letting it imprison me, I guess, almost.
You kind of have like the alpaca model where you just kind of get shorn once a year and then you just let
Yeah.
it ride otherwise.
And this time it has gone over 1 year. I don't know how much, but it's I don't know. It might be like halfway to two. Maybe I should see what it looks like. But yeah, I don't believe in haircuts, as I've said many times. So I only cut all of it off, or I don't touch it. So it's not been tended to in a very long time, and there's like knots and stuff happening.
Oh man, we got Ross Trent Mario coming through in just a few weeks.
Ross Trent.
Yeah. I think that's like a white guy, dreads guy, if I remember correct. I think that's like some early
Oh, okay. I
YouTube.
didn't I didn't know. I don't keep up with all the Vine stars and SoundCloud rappers or whatever, so I hadn't heard of him yet.
Okay, and I guess the more recent example would be the Island Boys, but I digress. Our TikTok and Vine pod
Oh,
still
right, yeah.
in the works, but we've got football games to talk about. So I say let's do that. Beginning Thursday evening, we got a game up in your neck of the woods. We got the Packers playing host to the Tennessee Titans, who I believe have covered every spread on the road this year. They're 3-point favorites in this one. I think that they have a brand of a style of play that travels pretty well, especially in tricky conditions that can
Aren't
trip up
the
other
aren't
teams.
the Packers the 3-point favorites?
I'm sorry. Yes. So that
Okay.
yeah, the Titans are road dogs.
It just
Uh,
jumped too, I think. Like I just wrote an article this morning about it being 3-point spread, and it's showing as 3.5 now on covers.
So yeah, so some interesting movement there. Do you think that that's a bit of an overcorrection based on last week, or is this just kind of like maybe a sense that things are going to come home to roost for this Titans team that is solid, but maybe not all that spectacular?
I don't know. I guess part of that swing, I don't know what if there's been an announcement yet, but if Jeff Simmons were out, that might be a rare case where a defensive player is worth changing the spread. But other than that, and I mean the Titans are without their at this point two best edge rushers. Like Landry had been out, and Dupree is out now. So they might have just like the Titans might have a badly compromised front seven basically, and so maybe there's something Green Bay can work with there that the teams that got covered on the road did not have at their advantage here. But yeah, I don't know. Looking from my view, looking at the matchup and just kind of like the broader picture, I don't know if I would consider Green Bay favorites in this game. Like, not that I want to go and say they can't win because I don't know. I'm thinking something more like 4.5 times out of 10, not 6 out of 10. In large part because the Green Bay run defense has suffered all year, and their their averages could get a little worse yet after seeing Derrick Henry. It's going to be about 20 degrees there, so Tennessee kind of has to keep the ball on the ground. They're kind of inclined to, obviously, but they have to because Tannehill's got pretty small hands by quarterback standards, and he's got a pretty bad history once the temperature gets below like 50, let alone 40, and it's going to be 20 or so. Don't know about the wind, but it's going to be like at least 10 or 12 or something like that. Might go up a little bit. Got to keep an eye on it. So if the Titans have to throw the ball, they're kind of just toast right there. It's so bad they might as well just not do it, no matter how much they're losing. They might as well just run instead of try to throw to catch up. So the other thing, of course, is like Derrick Henry gets better as the year goes along, and maybe that has something to do with temperature getting lower. Maybe that has to do with just other players getting fatigued at a rate faster than him, and him just kind of going the same speed all year at a time where other players lose a step over the course of the season. I don't really know what it is, but it's emphatic in his splits. Like you look at games 9 through 16, and he's averaging like almost 6 yards a carry, and we know he's getting upwards of 30 carries in those games. So it's a problem for a good defense, it seems like, and the Packers' run defense is pretty bad. So on the other hand, the Tennessee offense can't throw it all. So if Rodgers has a pretty good game, and like that might be all it really takes for Green Bay to tie it up.
So, what did you make of the Christian Watson breakout last weekend?
Um, it's not that interesting to me, to be honest. I mean, it's the kind of thing that we knew he could do. Granted, I didn't really expect it to happen in that game, or 3 touchdowns, I guess. To be fair to Watson, as much as he's compared to Valdez Scantling, I don't remember Valdez Scantling ever having a 3 touchdown game. So Watson may, you know, should prove better than Valdez Scantling, but the same fundamental issues are still there. It's like he can still disappear for long periods of time. Like the only real difference between him and Valdez Scantling, I'd say, is I don't know, I guess there's like a little bit more lateral coordination with Watson. Like he can take carries and run pretty credibly, whereas I don't think Valdez Scantling could ever do that. So there's a little bit more with Watson, but he's still going to be the kind of guy who struggles to draw targets per snap reliably over a bigger sample, and teams are going to kind of lock him up outside if they can press well. Like he can kind of just get removed from a lot of plays. So the times he does get open, like he can do a lot of damage on those reps, sure, but B, like he has a tendency to flub those anyway. Like he might be a kind of guy who catches like 48% of his career targets. So that huge game was good to see, but to me, it's more the kind of thing like if it hadn't happened, eventually it would have been a big red flag because his aggregate numbers are still not that great. It's just like this huge game made his numbers look vaguely acceptable, and,
Hmm.
and not even now do they look particularly strong over the season.
Right. So, I mean, our kind of characterization of him, and correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but a guy with crazy athletic measurables was really the only big receiving threat in that North Dakota State offense. But there was some serious rawness to his game, to where we both kind of figured that the Packers might have done better to go elsewhere with the receivers on the board
Oh yeah.
in the second round, or let alone in the first, even though the pool kind of dried up a little bit in the top 20. But I think, like, there is that kind of like freakish talent, but I think that he still kind of remains so rough around the edges that I don't know if last week is the signal of him necessarily like locking into to that type of player, not a 3 touchdown a week type of guy, but like a number one in this Green Bay offense.
Yeah, if they need him to be that, I think he'll mostly disappoint them because he doesn't really have median range outcomes. He's either kind of a dud or, yeah, he's making a huge play downfield. And sometimes while you're waiting for that big play to happen, you're just kind of drowning, like you need somebody to do something. And if he's that guy that you need and that big play isn't there, you kind of just lose. So they need him to be what Valdez Scantling was, which they didn't depend on him like that. They had Devontae Adams drawing obviously the vast majority of that usage, and they had Valdez Scantling doing distance running, like making corners burn some calories running downfield, which is something that I think pretty much every team underestimates the need for. Like I think you should make the defense get tired any way you can, and if you send a guy downfield, even if he's only playing like 700 snaps, and even if you're not really targeting him that much, the defense still has to run with him every single time. And if they don't, you put that deep ball out until they do it again. And all the while they're running that distance, they're getting more tired and they're leaving a little space underneath that someone else can use. So Watson can do all of that stuff, but if they expect him to just all of a sudden start drawing like 8 targets a week, then they're gonna complete like I said, like 47-50% of those targets. And when the ball's landing on, well, I guess you can't just assume it's going to land on the ground every time. But the time it's not being caught by Watson is maybe just in, multiple drives getting killed. And that's especially against Derrick Henry. I mean, if you're killing your offense with stalled drives, Derrick Henry will make the defense get tired. Like it's not up to the defense. There's nothing that can be done about it. The longer you leave them out there to take those jabs, the sooner they're just going to eventually teeter over.
No, yeah, exactly. So that will be kind of the story of the game, whether Tennessee can kind of establish that ground game and keep the Packers offense off the field and a little bit under pressure when they are out there, because the defense is simply not stopping Tractor Cito and company. But beyond that, one last thing to touch on, you mentioned the Simmons injury along the Tennessee front. In your mind, do you feel like this is a good spot for the Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon tandem?
It's tough for me to think through, especially given the short week detail. Like the Titans actually gave Derrick Henry a bit of a breather relative to his usual standards last. Like I think he had only 19 carries, whereas they will probably try to get him to 30 in this one. Aaron Jones had 25 carries or 24 carries last week, and that's a lot for him. He's not really built to do that week to week, and especially on a short week, especially in a cold setting, in my opinion. Like if there's any kind of if he's got a half a step missing, then that cold turns it into a full step, and it's not great for guy of his durability history either, to be taking a big volume, carry volume anyway, and against a Titans defense that's generally pretty tough against the run, and Vrabel teams always hit, they always play kind of psychotic, so it's not going to be a fun, easy game for the run game, in my opinion, and I think you might see them go maybe a little bit more of the split than usual to A.J. Dillon, like try to keep Aaron Jones maybe around like 10 or 12 carries and Dillon maybe pick up the difference. I don't know. Just because Dillon, A, short week, B, Dillon is built to withstand that kind of abuse. And he also, there might be some kind of second half kind of thing to tap into with A.J. Dillon the same way as with Derrick Henry, like not as pronounced, but it's gotta suck to have to tackle that guy especially once it gets colder.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of the thought when the Green Bay Packers drafted him a couple of years back. Is like, okay, late season Lambeau, like that's when he can really start to pop off, because that's like tackling a refrigerator with a motor, and the refrigerator happens to be filled with concrete. Just no
Worst
fun.
kind of fridge to stare down in the open field.
You don't love seeing that.
But yeah, it's like whereas Henry goes to like almost 6 yards a carry in games 9 through 16, Dillon's average stays about the same, but the touchdown frequency I think is more than twice as much. So if he didn't have those touchdowns stopping him, he might have averaged like a yard more per carry himself.
Good point. Anything else on this game before we move on over to Sunday?
Randall Cobb is back. He might be a good bargain on DraftKings because he's like 600 or something, and he might play like 35 snaps or something like that.
Okay, bear that in mind. Those showdown slate players out there. Quick question. My sarcasm meter might be going up for this one, but any updates on Marquise Brown? There's a chance that he returns as early as this Monday night. Cliff Kingsbury said that there was a chance as of Wednesday.
Yeah, I hadn't kept track of that. So, John, you just gave me my first update in however long it's been since he got hurt too. I'd like to see him back, but I don't know. It kind of, weren't they expecting him to be out like a year initially? Like that seems like a quick return for the kind of thing he had.
It was like I think 6 to 8 maybe was the initial timeline.
All right, well, yeah, I mean, if he can come back and play, that's going to change a lot. I mean, I've had my criticisms of Cliff Kingsbury and his system, obviously, but if you got, in Cincinnati's case, it's Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Like you can kind of run a predictable crap offense and be bailed out by the talent. And
Yep.
Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins could be a similar thing.
I have, that's the Monday night game, so we'll end the show with that one. But I have a belligerent take about that game and how it might unfold
I
in
love that.
Mexico City on Monday night. But let's head on over to Sunday. We got the Falcons playing host to the Bears. Falcons 3-point favorites at home. The total in this one setting in at 49.5. A couple of bad defenses, of course, on the field here, but they kind of line up in a way that it doesn't necessarily like where the defenses are weak don't necessarily align with the strength of the opposing offense. Like the Falcons, for instance, have the 31st ranked pass defense, and the Bears are interested in throwing the ball maybe 22, 23 times a game. So we'll see, how effective the Bears can be on that per drop back basis. But I kind of have a good feeling about the Bears in this spot, and I know that they've run this strange narrative, or this strange narrative is basically cropped up where there's optimism about the Bears, but they've only won like one game since they started waking up, essentially. Like they got the early season win against the 49ers and all that, but they beat the Patriots. They've lost every game since then, but the offense looks like it has something in that span. So therefore, I think that there's been kind of like a positive narrative despite the losses stacking up. So your thoughts on this Bears team, their direction, and how it suits them this weekend in Atlanta?
Well, yeah, losses or not, when a quarterback, especially a prospect like Fields, plays like he has been, that's gonna, for understandable reasons, get everybody pretty optimistic as they should be. And I mean, I think both of us we're kind of in the position of saying like Fields Fields is not like for sure going to work out or without risk or anything like that. But the idea that he was ever the reason for the Bears' early season struggles always seemed kind of ridiculous. So even to me, as someone who didn't come out like I considered myself pretty pro Fields. I had that one concern about him like pulling the trigger because the accuracy, that the throwing strength, the athleticism in general, of course, were all insane.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been pretty. With all that said, even though I was kind of like I think more optimistic than not with him, I am pretty shocked with how well he's done lately. Uh, Happy to see it though, because it was a lot of crap that he was dealing with for a while there, of course, and it was always like unnecessary. It was like even if he's not great or whatever, the way the Bears were running things just made no sense and set him up for failure. So it's like, what do you know? They start leveraging his running abilities, and all of a sudden things open up a little more for the pass, and then he makes a few pass plays he didn't in the first month, and that opens up even more running possibilities. Like the defenses are totally just dizzy and tripping all over the place now. They can't figure out how to get a hand on him, and that's kind of like, well, on the one hand, it's like that's kind of what we thought should have been possible all along, but also there's going to be an adjustment from defenses eventually. Like he can be quite great and still hit a rough stretch before this year ends and still finish the year with really good looking numbers and making him one of the highest scoring fantasy quarterbacks. Like that's how insane he's been lately. But it's like the stuff of like running for 150 yards a game, like that's got to come down a bit. But what I'm optimistic about, or what I'm hopeful for, anyways, even when the rushing yardage comes down, like I said, it's going to be at the expense of the pass defense, and particularly with Claypool there now. Hopefully, Komet doesn't miss time with whatever that was that he had. They should be able to throw more. Like the 20 pass attempts per game, that doesn't need to be the way they run things, especially if they're getting another guy in the box, another defender in the box. So it's pretty interesting. I still don't know what I expect Fields to turn out for like his median range, like his settled in state will be interesting to see. But yeah, right now he's just kind of like obviously running wild, and defenses are going to have to come up with very specific responses to the threats that he's posing, because they clearly didn't expect it. And there's no one else doing quite what he has. Like even Lamar, like I mean Lamar, I still consider the best running quarterback ever pretty easily. but Fields has more of a frame to put on the line.
Yeah.
Like he's got another like 15 pounds or whatever. So there's just he's doing stuff that like no one else can basically.
Yeah, he runs with a lot of oomph. Once
Yeah,
he
he's
gets
like
going,
235 or something, and he's still he's not that much slower than Lamar.
yeah, absolute unit. So that's a problem for the Falcons to contend with. Like you said, Komet has come on recently. His emergence has kind of coincided with the Bears' just kind of overall offensive renaissance. He's dealing with that thigh issue.
Yeah,
So we'll see where he's at as of Sunday. But having him along with Claypool and Mooney, I think is like a decent enough setup for them to have some success through the air. On the Falcons side, obviously, I live down here in Atlanta. After last week's game, I think a lot of people were kind of ready to go see Desmond Ritter behind center. Your thoughts on how Atlanta approaches this game, and obviously on the Bears side, the offense has been great. The defense, since trading away all of its good players, has been pretty brutal to the point where we're seeing teams rack up huge point totals and I mean the Lions offense had been dead in the water for weeks, and then they go up to Soldier Field and put up over 30 points. So
yeah, to do it on the
how did the
road too.
Falcons look? Right. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, so the Falcons are weird, and yeah, Mariota's not very good. Specifically, like the just missing open shots thing is kind of concerning, but I don't. I personally have no position on the Ritter thing. To be super clear, but I am a little. Uh, I don't know. I'm almost worried that you could call it. I guess that they're not going to go to him, but at the very least, like I'm kind of. You could call it. I'm a little skeptical of like the assumption that they're going to make a switch, especially because Marcus Mariota's overall numbers on the year are still pretty good, and uh, not to excuse these throws that he's missing. I just bring up that point to say like Ritter might be able to make some of these throws that Mariota is just straight up missing for no good reason, but he also might do a lot of other things not as well as Mariota. And if Mariota is overall producing kind of okay, like it's not numbers you aspire to as an offense clearly, but it's like better than I think we had reason to project with him. So particularly when Mariota, ugly or not, is still doing a little better than people expected of him, it's going to be tough for Smith to make the switch to Ritter. And if they do go to Ritter, I have no idea what to expect. I mean, he's interesting. It's impressive that he improved pretty much each year, being a 4-year starter at Cincinnati, and he does a lot of things plainly well, and he's clearly a very good athlete overall. But at the very least, he won't be able to run the way Mariota has. Like Mariota, they leverage his frame quite a bit to the point that I'm kind of surprised he hasn't gotten hurt already. But they lean on the fact that Mariota runs the same 40 time as Ritter at about 15 pounds heavier. They get volume on the ground from Mariota, and I don't know if like Ritter can make the 20-yard run just as well as Mariota, but I don't know if he can give him as many of the I don't know if he can go from carry 5 to 10 without something maybe going wrong.
Right.
So I think they're kind of stuck with Mariota. I don't know what I expect out of Ritter. I still like him enough, but it's just um, I don't know. I don't see something other than the accuracy component that he does clearly better than Mariota, and I don't know if Smith is going to care as long as Mariota is overall, putting up decent aggregate numbers, which he is right now, ugly or not.
Right. Yeah, it's like one of those things where like the film may look kind of ugly, but the bottom line numbers look okay for Mariota.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's frustrating, especially as a Pitts investor. But it's like the other crazy thing about Pitts specifically is there's a bunch of plays where he gets penalties committed against him, and it's like if he's running 30 routes instead of 20, maybe he gets that second shot, and maybe the defense doesn't interfere, and maybe he catches that one, and you get fantasy points for it. But yeah, it's just really easy for the for the Falcons to target Pitts surprisingly high percentage wise, and you still just get nothing for it because it's like what's 40% of 17? It's like it doesn't
Mhm.
really matter.
No, exactly. So, yeah, it's just kind of the way that the system is built there. As for how weak this Bears defense looks right now, what's the way that we can expect the production to come
Yeah,
from for
I'd
Atlanta?
like to say Pitts, but presumably the Bears, like most defenses, will make their entire mission stopping him, and everything else gets negotiated from that point. But like you said, without Roquan, with the Bears' run defense just becoming a total mess in recent weeks, it seems to me like the Mariota, Patterson, Algier, just wishbone system should be pretty good. I don't know which two, but I think two of them will run pretty well in this game. And if Huntley gets out there, I trust him to do a good job. So I don't know what I expect of Fields' response. Like I expect a good response because the Falcons' defense sucks, but you might just kind of see this game turn into kind of like a track meet, like literally, on the ground too. Like it's just going to be kind of like uh, one long baton race or something until time eventually runs out.
Well, I think with both of these games or both of these teams being kind of ground oriented, I wasn't shocked necessarily to see the total as high as it was, just based on how these defenses are playing. But I think that we could just kind of as a result see a lot of like long sustained clock draining drives, where this game ends up going under, despite the fact that like not a lot of great defense is being played.
Yeah, I guess that comes down to like how short the fields are and how many big plays either side makes. So it's like for the Falcons, I guess you might say like the more Patterson and Algier carries, the more likely their big play happens. But like the more that Mariota and Huntley take, the less likely. So yeah, I don't know. It could turn into a bit of a track meet though, even though it's on the ground, just because both defenses just kind of suck. And if they get gassed and it's like Fields against a tired defense, or even Mariota running against a tired bad defense, like there could be a lot of yardage on the ground. We might see like uh, rushing yardage numbers in this game that you normally see for passing yardage in shootouts. Like it might be like 80 yards passing for both quarterbacks, but like 200 on the ground.
Yeah, yeah, a real like a classic Air Force versus Army type of
Yeah,
game almost.
like a
Um,
4 overtime one.
just a thing of beauty. Before we get on over to our next game, got a message from our friends over at Blue Wire. And we've also got a message from our friends over at No House Advantage. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em contests versus other people for the shot at winning big cash prizes. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot at hundreds of thousands of dollars every week. You can also test your skills versus the house and 20x your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player prop, over-unders, or individual player matchups across every major sports league, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Sign up today with the promo code NHAWIRE. That's NHAWIRE at nohouseadvantage.com, or download the app on the app stores to get a first deposit match up to $25. Make sure to check out No House Advantage today and experience daily fantasy sports redefined, because it's not just how you play, but also where you play. You don't want to miss out on this. All right, let's hit a couple of questions here. Our listeners patiently waiting and got some good questions in here that this week. Let's see. We are going to get to the Mark Andrews thing here in a second. Vincent, um, we are talking Ravens Panthers next. Teaser, spoiler. Clamped wants to know, if you had to pick 3 of the following, who would that trio be? Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson, or Joe Mixon? Who you benching from that group?
It's tough. I know I was just talking about how I'm a little concerned that Aaron Jones's workload might be somewhat contained, but I would still have a difficult time benching him. I'd probably leave him in. Do we know is Ezekiel Elliott supposed to return this week?
I mean, he's
I would
been,
lean toward Pollard, I think, either way, honestly, because I could imagine Eric Kendricks being a pretty effective counter to what Pollard does. And the Vikings' run defense, I guess, has been pretty good all year. So I'd go Pollard, but yeah, it's easy to get wrong because those are all good options.
right. Exactly. Stevenson against the Jets would be the other one that I'd be close on, but I'm like definitely starting. Mixon and Aaron Jones,
Yeah.
and Stevenson and Pollard. I think you have the right read as far as Pollard is concerned. Squilliam, brother of Squidward, wants to know your thoughts on starting Josh Palmer or Deontay Johnson.
I would go with Dion. Am I missing something here? Like, I guess it's the Chiefs thing, but Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both practiced yesterday, right? Like, I feel like I read that. I would definitely lean Deontay. Yeah, and I am originally a bit not a hater of Deontay, but I was pushing back when people were trying to say he was like a top 10 receiver or whatever, and I do as a prospect hate Kenny Pickett, but I still would go with Deontay Johnson, like especially with Awuzie out for the Bengals now.
Right. Yeah. For a while there, you were the gif of the guy with the sword as like the entire cavalry is coming after
That
him.
guy, yeah, Jon Snow versus those guys.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not a
Oh,
Thrones
that's right.
head.
You don't like Game of Thrones. He's just some guy to you.
So yeah. So that's just totally lost
That
on me.
guy with the hair.
Like 10 people leave the chat right now. They're like, okay, I can't listen to these football guys if they haven't watched enough Game of Thrones. Mario's watched enough for
I
the
know a
two of
lot
us.
about the Games of Thrones, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And
John was repulsed even from season one.
just couldn't do it. I'm just gonna watch Dumb and Dumber for the 78th time instead. Oh man. Okay. All right. Onward. We'll get some more questions here mixed in as we go, but we're going Ravens, Panthers. Guess who's going to be in the house for that one?
Are
This guy.
you? Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Flying up
Um,
Sunday morning, heading right to the big crab cake.
taking a sign in there.
I might have to. I don't know if TSA will let me through with what I want to put on it.
You would be a good you could make a good like what is that Saturday that what's that college game day, like you'd be
Mm-hmm.
good at making a college game day caliber sign for a for a Sunday game.
Oh, that's like the biggest compliment you could have given me. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, However, when it comes to this game, we got Baker Mayfield starting for the Panthers. He has some experience starting against the Ravens from his Browns days, of course. And the Ravens are pretty sizable favorites in this one, 13-point favorites, it looks like right now. So that's up a little bit over the course of this week. So do you think the Ravens have what it takes to blow a team out, even if it is as lowly as the Panthers?
Kind of, but only because of the Panthers part. Like I'm not so drawn toward the Ravens. I don't want to repeat myself too much. I just hate Greg Roman's offense, and I guess it's a little personal too. Like, doesn't that goatee make you angry? That drawn on goatee, doesn't that piss you off?
It's like the South Park episode with like the bizarro South Park kids, and like Cartman has the goatee.
But there's no like what is the good parallel universe Greg Roman? I can't imagine it. It's got to be like it's got to be kind of like the thing with Chef where it's like Chef in my universe you're a white insurance salesman. Like it's got to be that kind of thing. Anyway, I think Lamar is great, and sometimes he transcends the whole rotten uh, thing they got with that offense there. And Gus Edwards, if he's back, that would be helpful. I don't know what that Andrews question was, John, but him
I was just
practicing,
on his status, yeah.
yeah,
Whether we
him
think he's going to play.
practicing, even if it's limited as of yesterday, I think, knock on wood means he's probably back, probably going to be more or less himself.
Yeah,
So
I'm
that's
thinking
big.
so as well.
Yeah.
And
Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
what even kind of regardless of Andrew's status, I think just the sheer lack of depth that the Ravens have at receiver, I still think that
Yeah.
Isaiah likely ends up being plenty involved in the passing game this week.
I will say that I don't know. Like they'd have to run the offense a little differently than they did before Andrews got hurt. Because they went about a good month there where pretty much every two tight end look that they had, like other than like 5 snaps a game, every every formation with two or more tight ends, the non-Andrews tight end didn't run routes.
Hmm.
So they would have to get that second route runner, like you kind of hinted at. They'd have to have likely basically lining up for a wide receiver rep. if they do those things, then yeah, they could get both on the field and specifically both running routes at the same time. It would just kind of require a slightly tinkered approach, I guess. More like the approach they opened the season with before they went away from that for about 6 weeks.
Yeah, but I feel like the Ravens have generally been playing a little bit better of late. You know, they've won 3 in a row. I didn't think they looked particularly good against Cleveland, but I thought they played their best game against the Bucks, and I thought that the defense looked particularly lively against the Saints. And you know, those
Roquan
aren't
will
two.
change stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so I think whereas I was pretty skeptical of how this McDaniel uh, or McDonald experiment was going to go on the defensive side of the ball. It seems like he's kind of adjusted, figured
Who's
things out.
McDonald?
He was Michigan's defensive coordinator, who's the new one in Baltimore.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Yeah, well, he needed to pick it up. I was getting I didn't even know who the defensive coordinator was for a long time, and then this year I almost was like, who the hell is even? Because I don't like what they're doing that much. Like they've not upheld the tradition taught to us by Dean Pease and Wink Martindale and all them.
No, that they're not blitzing at all. So that you know, I was very concerned, but it seems like it's turned around. That you know, Justin Houston obviously back from the dead, and Calais Campbell was getting in the mix. They're not too far from having Ojabo back. Tyus Bowser got back in the
Oh,
mix
right.
recently.
That could be a game changer actually. If I
Yes,
don't know how healthy Ojabo is going to be, but they need for 5 years they've needed someone to make an actual pressure from the edge.
it's been tough to find for Baltimore. Bit of a blind spot. But beyond that, or speaking of the Ravens defense, you know what can we expect from this Panthers offense here on the road?
I don't know. I think they're in the Panthers are in a pretty difficult spot. So I could imagine the Ravens, I guess, teeing off on them a bit. Like it's a bad offense that the Panthers have. I do think Baker's better than PJ Walker, but it's like, what's the difference? I don't really not a
Comparing
much of.
rotten apples to rotten oranges.
Yeah, it's like one's rotted and out on the floor, stinking up everything, and the other is in a nice Ziploc bag, but still fully rotted.
Yeah,
But
it's like radioactive if you touch it.
yeah, the Ravens. I guess to go back to your previous question, I guess I could see them finally, really beating the team up big time, and yeah, maybe if Gus Edwards especially is ready to go in this one, you can imagine him just kind of, tenderizing them in the second half, especially.
Yeah, that's where I've been at it all week. You know, the Ravens well rested. Uh, you know, they had
Greg
the third.
probably can't screw this up, to be fair to Greg.
So this one time, you know, mark it down, November 17th at 11:32 Eastern. He we proclaim that not even against the Panthers can Roman completely screw this one up. So
Erase erase that goatee all the same.
it needs to go. It's
Scrub it off.
full of just for men fumes, just flying into his face
No,
from the
John, it's not
coordinator's
just for
booth.
men. It is drawn on with a marker.
Oh, then the fumes are even like
Fumes
more
still got fumes in play, yeah.
major, you know, potentially toxic, brain altering fumes. I think that about covers the Ravens Panthers game as only we can. Got a question in the chat about our next game. We got the Bills hosting the Browns with a potential biblical snowstorm coming to Buffalo.
Yeah. I don't know how that game's happening, honestly. I mean, they just what are they even? It sounds like it's too much snow to move. I don't know. It sounds like it's just kind of a joke.
My question is, you know, can one of the municipal buses in Buffalo that have like the snow shovel on them, can they fit that into the stadium, or can that go onto the field
Probably.
without breaking
They
it?
might have to like chopper in the shovel at the end. What do you call it? A plow, I guess.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's fitting through the walkway, but they have like ambulances on the field and stuff, don't they?
But yeah, I think
But
they're at
again,
least
I don't know
at
where
the
you're
ready.
putting any of that snow. That's so much snow. Anyway, if they for some reason let that game happen, everything could be so wacky. It's like I don't know how you project anything, especially on the basis of matchup. It's just kind of like more a science experiment at that point. And I don't know if anyone's run the last time the most infamous like really heavy snow game that I immediately have jumped to mind is that it was a day when like Megatron was super chalky, I guess, against the Eagles, and it was super snowy, and they couldn't field a serious game basically, or at least the Lions couldn't. So Nick Chubb, if if uh, if he can set his feet, I guess I would expect snow to suit him perfectly fine, and maybe even kind of like level the playing field a little bit in the sense that you would otherwise, I think, give the Bills defense the advantage against most offenses, including Cleveland's. But yeah, no one's throwing the ball if it's really like that just absurd of weather conditions.
My thinking is, when you approach this from a fantasy perspective, I'm more than likely starting my like top end guys from this game. Like I'll start Josh Allen still, unless like I have
Yeah,
a Justin Fields on my bench. I'll start Stephon Diggs likely. Chubb, like you said, I feel good about for sure. Because the thing about these snow games is, the defenses are the one that are slightly at a disadvantage. Like obviously the offense becomes a little bit more one dimensional, but the defenders are the ones that are running backwards and having to change direction
yeah.
reactionarily. So I think that the offense could have the edge in that sense, and I think Chubb could be a big factor in that one. But I don't think that the Bills are particularly well suited to like have a game in which they can't throw.
Yeah, and I guess I should back up a little bit. It looks like the snow should be mostly done. Like it might be apparently just a first quarter kind of thing. So, with that said, uh, I don't know if logistically they can run the game. Like they can. How do you have like the roads functioning and everything? I don't know. So I'm kind of skeptical that they or I don't know. I'd be alert for, I guess, something maybe getting audibled at the last second here. But even if there's no snow during the game, the field's going to be a little strange, like somehow. And also, it's supposed to be very windy there. So you're talking like 18-mile-per-hour winds. I would assume the gusts are going to be 35, pushing 40, something like that. So yeah, cold, any snow laying around, wind like that, it's still going to be difficult. But yeah, I think as long as it's not doing the blizzard during the game, Josh Allen and Diggs, you probably have to leave in because you need like the base win to be 30 before you're seriously considering benching either of them. I think Singletary sets up pretty well, actually. I mean, the Browns' run defense is so bad. I don't even care who the running back is. Like even
Hmm.
I would say Brian Robinson could run against the Browns' defense. So Singletary could be in a really good spot again after basically the same deal as last week. It's like if they're running for a touchdown and it's not Allen, it's Singletary right now. Hines can't really run behind the tackles. James Cook can't take more than like 5 carries in a game. So Singletary is going to have to do a lot of work.
So my last comment on this game, I just hope that Buffalo takes heed from last weekend down in Fayetteville and gets the Arkansas grounds crew up
They
to help
sprayed
matters.
ice water on the field. It was worth a shot, John. It was worth it.
If somehow any of our viewers and listeners did not see the Arkansas groundskeeping plan from last weekend when there was ice and snow all over the field, and they're just like, we'll just spray it with it, we'll just
That's
run the sprinklers, baby.
that's almost as stupid and like it's almost like the same thought process of that thing they had to issue the PSA against and wherever that hurricane was. Like, please do not shoot the hurricane with a gun. Like that's like the level of thought, like the same kind of thinking. It's just like, well, hell, let's shoot it with a gun, see if that does something. Let's spray water on the frozen field. Just see how it handles it. I don't know.
What water is it's warmer than ice, so clearly it will stay that way if we just put a bunch of it
It's
on the
like they
ice.
they went way overboard at like taking the wrong lesson from that thing about like actually it's too cold to snow. If it's snowing, it means it's a little warmer. Yeah, there's like it's anyway, it really happened. I couldn't believe it. I thought people were just joking or making a fake caption. But it's like just hosing down the frozen field. So good. So
Just
it can't be that bad, I guess. I guess the game has a chance as long as those guys stay in Arkansas.
yeah, but it would be funny if they somehow made it up to Buffalo they were brought in for their expertise on the
Yeah.
matter. Let's see here. Let's keep rolling. We got Texans, Commanders. Commanders 3-point favorites on the road in this spot. They just had an impressive victory over the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll get to the Eagles here shortly, but what do you take away from that Commanders game? And how does it apply in this spot on the road against Houston?
The pass rush showed up a little bit, and McLaurin obviously is just awesome. So uh, Washington looks better than they did to start the year. I would call Heineke an improvement over Wentz also. So that's another thing they got. If that's true, it's another thing that's made them better of late. Uh, I know I was just talking about how even Brian Robinson can run against the Browns' run defense. It's so bad, and the Texans' run defense is also that bad. So even though I think the reason for this is that any running back who has so much has been on like a preseason 85-man roster would be able to produce against this run defense uh, just the same. So can Brian Robinson
I
probably.
saw I saw a stat where Houston is hashtag on pace to give up 3,000 rushing yards this year.
Look, they're probably the last team that did that too, or has that never happened? I don't know. They've had a
I'm not
couple
sure.
really bad run defenses over the years. I feel like, um,
Yes,
not this is more like 10 years ago. It's not so much like the Bill O'Brien era specifically, but yeah, Houston's run defense is insanely bad. It's quite simply like sub NFL quality. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, even Brian Robinson can do something in this game. They're hell bent on making him happen. So it's they're going to go to it, and I don't know if Houston has the capacity to sell out against the run and actually do it. And even if they wouldn't do that, or they'd probably get burned for it because you can't sell out against the run when Terry McLaurin and not to skip Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson, those guys are all good. But yeah, you have to defend the pass against Washington. So and somewhat funnily to me anyway, Brian Robinson is the kind of bad that like the defense will literally defend the run less when he's on the field, even though they know he's a running specialist. It's like it doesn't matter if what the coaches are telling you, doesn't matter the progression of your keys or whatever. It's like you get out there and you're like, oh well, that it's 8. Okay, well, I got other things to worry about. Where's this guy? Whereas like when there's a really good running threat on the field, you're gonna be like, even and in this case, it's Antonio Gibson basically. That's like they're going to defend the run more, even though they know he's like not even like a running specialist. It's like it's higher on your list of concerns. So yeah, Brian Robinson could get to like I don't know 120 yards in this game, and like all the biggest morons in the world are going to start tweeting at me if that happens, and I'm just gonna have to I don't know, lock my account, I guess.
well, yeah, I knew that Brian Robinson would be the end of your Twitter account. It's been coming,
He's
but
gonna run for like 125 yards on 26 carries, and he'll still finish the year with a rushing average of 3.3.
and yep, with all of the damage basically being done against Houston. On the Houston side of things, did have a Damian Pierce question a little bit earlier. Would you trade Damian Pierce for Ramondre Stevenson?
No, I don't think I
I
would.
wouldn't either. Leave that be. Houston's bad. Damian Pierce good.
Damn,
And
feels
then
good.
there you go. There's a quick hitting analysis for you. And then uh, going back to that Browns game for a second, Nezzy wants to know: would you start Pacheco over Kareem Hunt given the potential weather factor in Buffalo?
Man, it's really tough for me to trust anything with the Kansas City backfield. I, I think Pacheco can do it if they give him the work. Oh man, I think I would probably go with Pacheco, but I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing as I try to answer that.
Yeah, it's brutal. Like Andy
Sorry.
Reid. Andy Reid hates our fantasy teams more than Patrick Mahomes does. With that it comes out and says like you guys are not going to like us and with how much we're mixing in our various target distributions and stuff. But now the backfield has been the one that has been just brutal to figure out over the course of this season.
People think I'm joking, but it's literally going to be the reason they lose in the playoffs because they need production. You need a certain level of production, and you need everybody that you have to pitch in what's necessary to add up to that amount. And if you keep taking 1 yard a snap from your running back reps, it's just hubris to think that Patrick Mahomes can pick up all of the slack differential and never have a rough stretch, especially against, I don't know, maybe the best defenses in the conference if you're in the playoffs. So it'll be why they will need more yards than they will get from their backfield, and that's why they'll lose.
There we go. All right. Well, put that in the can for January. But yeah, no, it makes sense. Let's see here. Anything else to add on the Houston side?
No.
Okay, same here. Indianapolis, Philadelphia. This game taking place at Lucas Oil Stadium. Eagles 6.5-point favorites on the road. This line moved a ton in light of both Indianapolis winning and Philadelphia losing. This was like 10.5 on Sunday morning. I think this is a great spot to buy back in on Philly at a
Yeah,
discount.
can I get a nice payout on the original spread? Because I'd be interested in that.
Yes, like I'm all over the Eagles in this game. That they got their loss out of the way. What better spot could there be than going up against Indianapolis, who is still a very, very bad team, and really last week was all about the Raiders fumbling the bag in pretty much the most hilarious way possible.
Yeah, I think the Colts still suck. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, he's a threat. He can hurt you if you're not careful. And the Eagles' run defense, especially without Jordan Davis, is not good. So it's something they need to be careful about. And I guess I should have given more thought to the possibility of Taylor just kind of having a crazy game. I don't think he has a 40-yard carry yet. Or wait, before he had that 60-yarder this week, he had none. Whereas I think he's usually like a 440-yard player most seasons. So he still is kind of like due for a few more big games. The Eagles could give up one here. I just right or wrong, I'm kind of optimistic that the Eagles offense at least will get back on track. And also, I guess I kind of question whether the Colts are going to be committed enough to the run to protect Ryan as much as they need to. If they try to do that thing where they're like, we're forward thinking, we like to throw the ball 40 times, especially on first downs. It's like, well, that's going to get you killed. So don't do that. If they do that, the more early down passes they do with Ryan, the better for the Eagles.
Yes, yeah, you get them playing behind the chains, and things just kind of melt down pretty quickly. And then for Philly's side of things, obviously they played their worst game of the year. Obviously, all those turnovers. And one of my kind of lingering thoughts about Philadelphia moving forward. I think that game kind of played in a vacuum. Like you're not going to see them, or likely not going to see them melt down like that the rest of the way. But at the same time, it's a little bit concerning to me that they had basically been able to play on easy mode all the way until last week, where there had
Yeah.
been essentially no adversity facing them in any game. And I think part of that is the schedule, but also for their own part, they just hadn't been turning the ball over like whatsoever. I think they might have matched their season total in turnovers in just one game last week. So, taking a longer term view, I think they need to be a little bit better prepared for when things don't go perfectly according to plan.
Yeah, and I don't know. I have no data to back this up or whatever, but I kind of think a game like last week's can be a little bit helpful for them actually because it's not to say that they're gonna like by losing or having bad games identify every problem they have and work through it. Like it's not necessarily that, but it is good to be in the position to just the position where things aren't going your way and you have like some experience trying to work back from those things because like you lose those games so that when you have the turnover you're not used to in the playoffs you're actually a little bit battle tested and coming back from those conditions. Like you don't want all of your experience to be in easy conditions like you said, when in the playoffs it's rarely possible. You just don't get easy as an option. You have to be able to claw through things. So you need practice clawing back, and they didn't win that game. But that's not the significance of it. It's that they hopefully the second time they see it, the third time they see it, they know better what to do. I think it was a meaningless game more or less. It was just like a couple the ball bouncing the wrong way kind of loss, and when they a game they win like I don't know 7 times out of 10, something like
Right.
that.
Like Quez Watkins stays on his feet. That's a touchdown, not a fumble that goes to Washington. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
and not for nothing, but I thought that might have been like the best ball I've ever seen Jalen Hurts throw.
yeah, and I guess I should say like no Goddard obviously hurts the Eagles, so maybe that's enough reason for me to rethink the spread thing too, because the Goddard is really, really good, even if he doesn't always show up in the box scores. Like he's always an extremely good player. So Jack Stoll or whatever, and these other guys, I don't even know who they are. So they're slack, and they're not used to playing with that slack. So they might, I guess, have a little bit of a struggle to figure out there too.
Yeah, no, that will be an important thing for them. I guess he's supposed to return sometime in the middle of next month, but that means a few games without him. But I do believe that they overall take care of business this Sunday in Indianapolis. Let's hit Jets Patriots, and then we got a couple of real gems coming up after that one.
Oh
But
God.
both these teams coming off the bye. We know that the Patriots won last time. Matthew Judon probably still haunting Zach Wilson's nightmares at this point. The red sleeves probably just something that scares him, even if he just sees that in public at this point. But this game in Foxborough, Jets get a second chance at it. It wasn't that big of a blowout. They had some dumb things happen, self-inflicted in that first game against the Patriots. How do you see this one going with the Patriots favored?
It's tough for me to think through. I feel like some of Mac Jones's struggles might have been a little bit not due to, but related to the new scheme that they were implementing this year, and I think just kind of putting him in situations that he was not versed on, more like higher difficulty situations than he was used to, basically. So I could imagine. I guess I should say I kind of just think Mac Jones is going to get a little better, but he's been properly bad for most of the year, so it's not like especially not against this Jets defense that's good. Do I want to assume today is or this game is where Jones starts correcting everything? It's easy to imagine him struggling against a defense this good, especially even at home. So I don't know. I think the Patriots kind of need to run things the way they did the last time, where they started out a little slow and then over the course of the game, Stevenson with the defense getting favorable field positioning set up, Stevenson ground down the Jets defense and they pulled away in the second half. And I think that's how they have to play it here too. It's like if they get, I think to throw the ball too much early on would be a little bit, uh, not hubris exactly, but the wrong idea anyway. I think you need to just understand that like not yet anyway is Jones and this group of receivers ready to really go head on against a defense like the Jets and get that defense tired before you try to throw the ball too much and ideally in as much play action as possible as much play action as possible.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to throw on the Jets until they have them worn down. So that's a very good point. On the Jets side of things, last time we saw them, they beat the Bills. Obviously,
Yeah.
Josh Allen wasn't at 100%. Made some dumb turnovers in that game, of course. Uh, but Mac Jones can do something similar as well. But any optimism or ways in which you can be optimistic when it comes to the Jets here?
Um, it would have to be that they hide Zach Wilson and expose Mac Jones more than the Patriots do Zach Wilson because unlike Ramondre, Damian Harris, I don't think the Jets side, and part of this is due to, offensive line injuries and James Robinson not even being healthy himself. Certainly, if they had Brees Hall, it'd be a different question entirely, too. But the Jets' running game doesn't credibly have the option of accumulating volume and wearing down the Patriots' offense. It's like the Patriots' offense, or sorry, the Patriots' defense. The Patriots' defense, the Jets still would like to see them gassed, but if they get gassed, it's not going to really be so much that the Jets moved the ball and got first downs and kept them on the field as much as the Patriots offense just failed even more rapidly and gave them even shorter fields. And then if you keep any defense just even if they're just kind of standing around on the field the whole time, that will tire them out more than letting them sit on the sideline will. So maybe the Jets kind of in the fourth quarter, if they really make a low scoring affair of it, maybe the Jets kind of just choke out eventually the Patriots defense with just like 3 yard runs until they turn into 4 and 5 yard runs. Uh, I don't know what else they can get going. I mean, Garrett Wilson can make big plays after the catch and everything, but the Zach Wilson part, he needs to be bailed out one way or another.
No, he definitely does. Tony chimes in saying, "Nah, Mac Jones is just trash. I don't trust any of the Pats other than Ramondre." And you know what? I echo that sentiment. I'm on the Jets in this one.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think Mac Jones is pretty bad and at least present time, so I don't actually have a big preference in this one, but I'll pick the Patriots just because I don't know. Have you seen Zach Wilson?
Historically, that's a smart pick.
Have you
Definitely.
seen Zach Wilson?
Yeah,
Um,
I try to avoid as much Zach Wilson as I like. I'll like be interested when the Jets defense is on the field, but like otherwise, I'm especially
the
with no
the
Brees Hall
the
anymore.
defense slaps. Yeah.
It's cool to see Sauce Gardner just rocking out as hard as he does. Um, but I think we've got that one covered. Before we get on over to our next game, which is a doozy, folks, we got a message from our friends over at StatHead. It's easy to find Derrick Henry's statistics from this year with a quick Google search and a visit to Pro Football Reference. You can see that he's rushed for over 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. But that raises more questions. How many other players have hit those marks through 9 games? How many did it at Henry's age? To answer those questions, there's StatHead. StatHead is your all access pass to the Pro Football Reference database. In StatHead, you can compare up to 6 players' stats side by side to determine who to start and who to sit, or you can dig through advanced stats to find the perfect player to add off waivers. There's an array of simple tools that unlock an endless number of search options, all using the same easy to use interface that you already know from Pro Football Reference. Plus, StatHead lets you browse Pro Football Reference ad free. Sign up with the promo code RotoWire for $20 off an annual subscription to StatHead. Also, got a message from our friends over at MKF. Football is officially back on Monkey Knife Fight with all the NFL action you're looking for. And if college football is more your speed, they've got plenty of that too. On Monkey Knife Fight, there's no sharks, no salary caps, and no math. It's just easy to play, easy to win, daily fantasy player props. Join now at monkeyknifefight.com and you'll get your first game free. Then use promo code RWNFL to get your first deposit matched instantly up to $100. So, what are you waiting for? Join Monkey Knife Fight today. All right, been teasing it here for a minute. Let's get to it. Saints, Rams. What's going on there?
I guess. Let's see. Do we expect Stafford back in? I noticed he's listed as a full participant in Wednesday's practice. So
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assumption at this point. So I think he's. I'm approaching this game as if Stafford's playing, but I'm also
plus
approaching this
Dang
game.
Wolford. Is it Bryce Perkins is the third one? Yeah. So with I think if it were Bryce playing, it would be the Saints favored by more than 3. So we can maybe, like you said, kind of just assume Stafford's back in here because otherwise, I don't know how it could get pretty bad for them if they have to go to Bryce Perkins. The Saints, I don't know, man. They're kind of just bad, obviously, and they're so beat up. It's like Marshawn Lattimore's still not practicing yesterday. It's been like 2 months. Did he just have like a proper abdominal tear or something like that? Because I feel like he's been out a long time. Then they got let's see. We don't know
I
if
think
they're going to have their left tackle. They don't know if they're going to have their left guard. They might not have their right tackle. I think we're already down somebody else on the interior. I can't remember
yeah,
who. So
they're four of their starting linemen were not practicing Wednesday. So that
that's
is a
fine.
concern. As much as I just
Yeah.
want to like bang on the Rams, the Saints might simply just be too just battered
I
at this
yeah,
point.
man. With Stafford, if Stafford is in, even with Cooper Cup out, with Stafford in, Aaron Donald against an offensive line that's down 4 out of 5 starters is about all that I really need to hear. That like I know it hasn't been a very good season for him and the Rams, but you put him against a bunch of backups, they're just going to get abused. It's not going to be good for them.
You think the Saints just kind of need to make this a Taysom Hill game as a result? Just limit those dropbacks?
I don't know. He might. I, this is kind of a tasteless thing to say, but it might just get a. It might just kind of make all like he'll have that BYU scenario where it's like he breaks his leg every like 6 games. Like
Yep.
he went like 4 years breaking his leg like 3 times, and yeah, just running into the teeth of the Aaron Donald defense with a bunch of backup linemen might just kind of be serving up Hill as like a human sacrifice, and then they still lose.
Brutal, but you know what? There is precedent behind it, so you're not out of line on that one. I think that the question that people want to know in light of the Cup injury, I think everyone is so jaded about Allen Robinson at this stage. Who do you like in as far as this passing game goes, and does Stafford have enough right now himself to like make it work?
Yeah, sorry, I can't think of who would even be doing the slot coverage for the Saints in this one, but you would think it's primarily the slot that opens up for Robinson, and not that Cooper Cup always lined up in the same spot, but McVay's best dialed up looks were usually through the slot in some way or another. And I don't say this to take any credit from Cup, but like pretty much every time they could cook up anything, it would go to him specifically. So Robinson mostly, yes, disappointed because he's probably just not very good anymore. But he also never really had the benefit of the offense specifically prioritizing him, whereas now they have no choice but to. So I, I don't want to say a good finish for Robinson is in store, but it has to be a lot better than he started.
Yeah, I mean, just the sheer volume uptick should help him be somewhat useful. But I don't know if it's going to be explosive with his catches, but and he'll need to find the end zone. But there's the opportunity at the very least should be there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a couple like 8 catch 100-yard games before the year is over.
No, I don't think I would either. Even with how rough things were, I think that's well said about him playing within the confines of an offense that's basically specifically tailored for Cooper Cup. So yeah, even with all of the Rams' misgivings this year, they probably can't screw this one up. The total is 38.5. That just goes to show you how rough it is for both of these sides right now. Let's hit Giants Lions. We got the Giants 3-point favorites at home against the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Dan Campbell supporter, but I still don't really know why we'd expect them to be that close in this game. Like, I don't know. I guess it's kind of interesting. On covers, it's indicating that 71% of the betting volume apparently is on the Giants, and yet the line has gone from 3.5 to 3. So somebody out there has even more faith in Man Campbell than I do, and I maybe I'm missing something. I guess we like Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau didn't practice yesterday, but Lawrence they're listing as slash rest, so he should be fine. Am I missing some other like big injury for the Giants or something like that?
I think
Um,
I mean, this was a problem for or a factor last week, but McKinney, I think, is still out.
oh, geez, he must be on like IR then.
Yeah, he,
That would.
he got injured during their bye week.
Oh crap. Yeah, I totally missed that. Okay, that
Yeah, it
is a
was like
big
an
deal.
ATV accident gone awry.
Oh my God, he did exactly the Sony Michelle. Oh man.
You're not supposed to do that.
Brutal. So yeah, that sucks for the Giants. It's definitely good news for specifically Amon-Ra St. Brown. Uh, DeAndre Swift could theoretically benefit too if they try to use him. But especially St. Brown, like St. Brown might have seen Xavier McKinney pretty much every play. So I don't know. I always worry about Jared Goff in like any non-dome, any non-surf weather kind of
Mm-hmm.
situation. So let's see what the it's supposed to be pretty windy there. I don't know about that. Yeah, the underneath stuff for St. Brown is going to be easier than if McKinney had been playing, certainly. But bad golf is liable to really pop up in this one. So I don't know. I don't want to pick a side, I guess, but I just can't pick golf to cover.
Breaking news here from Mike Garafolo. Looks like Jeffrey Simmons is expected to play tonight.
Yeah, it's not great news for the Packers. I mean, they're still fine or whatever, but it's a lot easier to beat the Titans when they don't have Jeff Simmons.
Yeah, he is a monster. And for the record, our buddy, our colleague Nick Whalen made the Giants -3 his best bet for this week.
All right. Well, I haven't been following his picks this year. I'm sorry, Nick, but
He's
I
been good,
believe
but the best
I
he
trust him.
can't get the best bets right. Can't do it. So he has to do the bet MGM read almost every week when we do the pod.
Well, maybe this week he makes you do the read.
The rule is if we both get it right, then the person who read it last time has to roll it over.
Oh my
And
God, that's
I'm not losing mine.
that's like medieval kind of.
Yeah, no, we put each other in the torture chamber on that pod. It's pretty funny. But beyond that, yeah, I think we've touched on the necessary things for this Lions Giants game. Let's go. What I think is a strong contender to Rams Saints for sicko game of the week. We've got Raiders Broncos.
Oh my God, that's sicko game of the century. Oh man, getting all nauseous thinking about this. Uh, uh, oh my God. All right. Well, yeah, this is bad. These teams are bad. I don't like these teams. Uh, make you get all sad
They
looking
do.
at these two teams. Uh, yeah, like the Raiders sure seem to me like they have a bit of a mutiny problem going on, even though I don't like who was somebody was reporting that they heard from a source that Mark Davis is locked in for sorry that Josh McDaniels is locked in for at least 2 years, which would be completely insane if it's true. And given how bad things have gotten already, it would seem to indicate that like Mark Davis's finances are really not in good shape. He's like by far the poorest NFL owner, and like everything that he has is just kind of like the remains of like Al's inheritance, what Al left
Have you
as an
seen what his
inheritance.
house is supposed to look like in Vegas? Like, I'm sure that there's just a lot of money tied up in that bad boy. It looks like the Death Star, like even more so than the
Oh, okay.
stadium itself.
Well, yeah, that's good. I'm glad he got a good bang for the dollar before it depreciated. But yeah, if he's leaving McDaniel's in, even with everything looking as bad as it is, with Derek Carr just doing that press conference, just like begging them to fire McDaniel's, and this thing with Clellan Farrell and three other guys getting like disciplinary scratched. I was like, that's strange. Like multiple veteran players all getting scratched for coaches' decision reasons for non injury reasons. That is interesting. You know, he clearly said these are not healthy scratches. These are like disciplinary scratches. So yeah, maybe they can just fix that because
It sound there's strong parallels, you know, with the money, like the office politics, with this situation as there are Texas A&M
oh, I thought you were gonna say Urban Meyer, and I was gonna say we need Daniel Carlson to say that Josh McDaniels called him a goober or whatever, or like put his flicked his ears while he was kicking, so he can get the for cause justification, so Mark Davis can afford to fire McDaniels.
called him Anders, which is Carlson's brother's name. You know that the biggest insult you could give, but
You
yeah,
could just call him what would that be like Thor then?
yeah, they
Something
are
like
a
that.
Nordic bunch there, but yeah, a couple like about a month ago, Jimbo Fisher had some players at the South Carolina A&M game smoking the reefer, like in the
Oh my
locker
god.
room. Yeah. So that
Well, I don't
he's
know if
lost
they were
control as
doing it
well.
in protest in this case, but yeah, I can imagine Josh McDaniels scratching someone over that,
Yes.
somewhat understandably.
So yeah, I think so as well. It's blatant, but when it comes to this game, we've been some of the OG Broncos current regime haters, but I stop short of saying that they can screw this one up.
I don't think, yeah, I think Denver wins easily. I don't think they can screw this up. The team seems to think, they probably think Hackett's a bit of a goof because he just is. He's a complete silly goose of a man. But it seems like the Broncos don't actually hate him, whereas it seems like Carr, especially doing that whole thing. I mean, I don't know what anyone thought he was getting at. To me, it seemed pretty clearly like he was just saying, like, I can't keep doing this, and we need the guy in charge to not be in charge anymore. Whereas, we haven't seen, not yet anyway, have we seen Russell Wilson doing like crocodile tears, asking for ownership to intervene or whatever.
True, very true. The Hackett's got them all, I guess, on the same goofy page. So yeah, like the Broncos here, fairly strongly. I love that it's just 2.5. I think that they can win that one by close to a touchdown. I think.
Yeah, they could win by a lot because, like, even if the Raiders throw to catch up, it's like, A, that's taking the ball away from Jacobs, and B, like, turnovers could definitely happen, especially if Sertan is just kind of removing Devontae Adams.
Right, exactly. So that they somehow don't have a path forward, and with the Waller and Renfro injuries, I mean things have just turned from bad to worse there in Vegas. So what was billed to us as like the greatest division of all time during the offseason,
I
it's going to
kind of
fall a little
fell for
short.
that. I mean, I really didn't think Josh McDaniels would be bad, let alone this bad. And he's
Same.
just like, how did he? Somebody's got to have Wickersham. Somebody's got to have like an inside the Raiders locker room, like the story of the 2022 season, because it's like this something crazy must be going on in there. I don't know what, but it's like it's bad, and it's not the kind of thing you see very often, whatever it is.
And they just had the 2019 season, the Antonio Brown saga. Like this is like getting close to rivaling that. They had the Gruden thing, of course, last year.
And
Um,
it's like in McDaniel's specific case, how do you just like the last time you were a head coach, you did that the Tim Tebow saga, and this is your step one, day one out of that. You're right to this. How? How do you? I can't believe it. It's just it doesn't seem possible.
it's completely hilarious. Yeah, he's just completely skated by his entire career by hanging out with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Um, let's see here. Let's continue. We got a road favorite, the Dallas Cowboys, going up to Minnesota to face the Vikings. News came across Wednesday that Justin Jefferson dealing with a toe issue. That's obviously a concern.
Yeah.
But I think even still, I was very slow to start to give Minnesota respect, but I think after these last couple of weeks, I think I'm ready to give it to them in at least some capacity.
Yeah, I'm not. I think. I mean, they're not a bad team. There's still something wrong on offense. I feel like, and if Justin Jefferson isn't around to just be superhuman, those other warts can become much more apparent yet. So the Vikings defense, this is the part that's I guess like the positive surprise to me is like the Vikings defense has been pretty good this year. I'm pretty sure against the run they've been one of the best pretty much all year. And you got Zadarius Smith. I forgot to check in on Daniil Hunter. Is he doing anything this year? I know Smith is. But yeah, it's like they got some pass rush credibility from those two alone. Eric Kendricks seems like he's pretty much back. So that's a pretty solid front seven. And what the really surprising thing to me is like the pass defense hasn't been completely, it's not good. It's still, I would assume, below average, but like they're so just slow and not great between uh, Cam Dantzler. He's fine, but it's just like you take him 20 yards downfield and he's not fine anymore. And then Patrick Peterson, it's like you can't really take him away from the sideline without something going wrong. So those two, I don't know how they how they've gotten a passable pass defense result with that personnel, and I
Just got
think
to be the
that's kind
pass
of
rush.
yeah. I guess it has to be, but yeah, I think like at once like that's impressive enough, I guess, but also true that it's not going to last, or at least they need more help from the offense still to make it last, and I'm skeptical of that part because Kirk Cousins just looks wrong to me.
Yeah, that they so despite the sparkling record, their points differential is just plus 35.
And it's got to be
And
pretty pronounced. Like they've had a lot of like ugly stretches. I feel like Kirk Cousins already having let's see, he's got like he's got more interceptions than he did last year in 16 games, and he's completing only 64% of his passes, which is the lowest since 2014. Yards per attempt is 6.7, which is the lowest in any of his. If he has that average at the end of this year, it'll be the lowest that he's ever had in a full season.
mm,
So that 64.1, that 6.7, especially when you're throwing in the 8 interceptions on just 354 attempts, like that's bad. For the receiver personnel that he had at his disposal, that's bad. Kirk Cousins is playing poorly this year, and I don't know how much that's really been noted. It's kind of just like, look at the record. Hey, Kirk Cousins is, smiling at the end of games. It must be going well with him. It's not.
yeah, he's wearing the chains on the plane.
Got his silly jewelry. Yeah, that was epic, John. Very funny.
It was quite the visual. It was it was so bizarre that I was a little bit into it.
Did
I'm
he
not even
start
gonna
doing?
lie.
I can't tell if I like just imagined or thought about this and started laughing, or if it actually happened. But was he doing like the Mac elbow dance thing with those on, like Mac from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? He does that like elbow dance thing. But I,
Hmm.
I, I guess I guess what must have happened is like I just thought like it would be funny and typical of him if he did that like unironically though. Like this would be
Yeah,
like a
with
cool thing
like
to do while you're wearing a lot of chains.
and while also like being completely unaware that that was from something. He independently came up with that.
Yeah, so anyway, I don't know what the whole chain thing was about. I didn't really watch it that closely, but I think it'll become one of those like notorious memes. Like I don't remember the last time there was one of these, but I don't know, I guess like George Bush mission accomplished kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I think that's it's one of the best parallels you can draw. Yeah, for when the Vikings ultimately lose in the postseason. But your overall thoughts on this game? Do you like the Cowboys to go in and get the win?
Yeah, I guess I don't want to say like exactly because I don't trust them at all, but if I have to pick, I pick Dallas.
Okay, I'm on the Vikings, but I'm feeling queasy about it. I think that was a good like little reminder as far as Cousins, where like the win loss results look a lot better than the box scores, certainly. Let's keep rolling here. We got a couple more games to get to. We got Bengals, Steelers. Bengals 4-point favorites in this one. Um, I kind of feel like and this one has moved around a decent bit. This was 5.5 as of Sunday afternoon. Obviously, the Bengals coming off the bye. We remember what happened in week one, of course, with all the sacks, all the turnovers. This one is going to be in Pittsburgh. I think the Bengals can win this one, and I feel well. Obviously, they're favored, but I think that the Bengals can cover as well. I don't think the Steelers quite have enough firepower. I know their defense is a bit healthier than it has been for most of the season, but they still have Kenny Pickett, and I just can't do it.
Let's see. I don't have a good sense of how well. Like I didn't see T.J. Watt in that game last week, but he played 36 snaps. He was, of course, a big problem for the Bengals in Week 1. Um, I gotta say, if Watt is back, or even if he's like 85%, that does kind of stick out to me. And has Fitzpatrick already been declared out? I noticed he had, like I knew it was an appendix, and I don't have a good sense of how long those take to come back from. But he wasn't practicing yesterday. Yeah, if Fitzpatrick is out, that's a lot. That's typically too much for them to overcome. Like they need him, Watt, Hayward to be to resemble the defense that we've come to expect, and certainly to play the way they did against the Bengals in Week 1. Um, there's definitely a like having their number kind of element to this game, and I don't know how much to factor it in. I can't tell uh, where you go over the line and put too much significance on it. But man, they looked the Bengals looked like they just had their like souls destroyed in week one. Like it was painful to watch almost.
Yeah.
So I I was shocked by that outcome. I didn't expect them to get throttled in week one at the time, so I don't want to just like overcorrect and be like, oh, it's gonna all repeat here. But yeah, I'm rattled. I'm shook by how that one went. I guess I'll go with the Bengals for the same reasons you said. It's Kenny Pickett, and it can still. I've been saying this, I guess, for about a month now. Like it can still get worse with Kenny Pickett. There's like always the ongoing league adjustment to everything, and sometimes guys start out at their best. Sometimes it only gets worse. Worse. I think Pickett's definitely going to be one of those career case studies.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. The age advantage that carried him to this point, that's going to start working against him. He's just simply not going to get better. And also, I think it interesting for spread purposes, but Pittsburgh doesn't have Chris Boswell.
Oh, okay. Who did I don't know who the backup is or whatever, but yeah,
I believe it's
Boswell's
Matthew Wright.
that guy's pretty good. I feel like
He was a great college fantasy football kicker back in his UCF days.
I guess
Um,
he's struggling a little bit this year. Um, but yeah, anyway, Boswell is pretty reliable, so I guess that could matter here.
Yeah, and that's a tough place to kick. Although Kick Fearson hasn't been as great this year, and was kind of the reason they lost at the end of
Now
their
that I
first
how
game.
long I took to figure that one out. Kick
That was
Fearson.
wild.
Yeah,
Thank you. Pretty good.
it
Um,
is good.
let's hit these night games. What do you say? Let's go Chiefs Chargers Sunday night. Chiefs 6.5 point favorites. Over under sitting at 50. I just am going to continue to bet on the Chargers to underperform. I know it's a basically touchdown. It's at home, divisional opponent that they gave a hard time to last time around, but I'm scared of the Chiefs. I think they're starting to hit their stride a little bit, and I just think that the Chargers they're just going to continue to disappoint.
Yeah, definitely with you on the Chargers bashing. I'll always be eager to bash Soy Boy and whoever their GM. I'm surprised I don't know the guy's name. I really don't like what he's doing. Uh, hate their drafts. Hate most of their free agent moves, etc. So that the Chargers found themselves in this situation where they had just nobody good on offense aside from Austin Eckler was uh, at once like the most easily avoided outcome, but also the very predictable one with how kind of like unseriously they've handled their personnel on offense. If Mike Williams is back, if Keenan Allen's back, that definitely changes something. I just don't know how much, and I didn't think the Chargers were starting from a point where like those two necessarily gets them over the hump or anything. It's everything with them just comes down to Herbert and whether he can transcend the circumstances. And sometimes he can, but against Mahomes, it's less likely than any other case. So I definitely trend toward the Chiefs. I guess it's worth like keeping an eye on Juju Smith-Schuster's concussion situation and all that. And I don't know where any of that's headed, but uh, the Kadarius Tony breakout is obviously a pretty big slash profound development for the Chiefs offense. And I know he had that one game against Dallas last year where he had the huge game and he kind of disappeared on us for like a year.
Yep.
So there's some precedent for him performing like that and then still disappointing us later. But I don't know. They really fed him, and they really got a lot out of him for the 28 snaps that they gave him. So uh, I don't know if he's ever going to be like a downfield guy. I feel like Tony's always going to be kind of like an underneath yards after the catch kind of guy. But
Mhm.
in that part of the field, he gives them something that they didn't have before that they can certainly use. In that with Mahomes being the quarterback in question, it might be like you know a higher yield with Tony per snap in this offense than any other, and it could be pretty explosive. It could be like an enduring sort of thing.
Yeah, I tend to agree. anytime or if you're able to unlock Tony's potential in a way that no other team really has been able to, even dating back to college, impressive. And, if you were going to draw up a team that could potentially do that, it's probably the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And then your thoughts on Pacheco. I know we kind of touched on it earlier in the show, but as far as this backfield goes, is there beyond like showdown slates, like for your season longs, you feel good about starting CEH? No, that's a dumb
They might
question.
as well scratch CEH. I know they've been scratching Jones, but it's like you're saying Clyde Edwards-Helaire can't play passing downs because Jerick McKinnon and his blitz pickup is just so important. Patrick Mahomes never threw the ball before Jerick McKinnon got there, and never before has Patrick Mahomes been in an offense where the running backs could produce. This is just how the scheme must be assembled. Like, this is nonsense. McKinnon can't play. They're trying to justify it on a vibes basis, and there's just nothing to it. So I trust none of Andy Reid or Eric Bieniemy's judgments with handling personnel, especially at running back. I think they just have no idea. Think about the premises that they're indulging by taking the ball away completely from Clyde Edwards-Helaire to give the ball to Isaiah Pacheco, who I liked more than he was. I liked him to go earlier than the draft slot they took him, but he was like 2 picks from being Mr. Irrelevant. And they have Jerick McKinnon playing on a $0 guaranteed contract. So they took Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round a few years ago. Not just that, not only did they take him over the other running backs that they did, they went into that season and most of the beginning of the next season trying to make him like a 20 carry running back. And it's like, okay, he's so bad that Pacheco, a near Mr. Irrelevant, and a guy that you literally did not give $1,000 guaranteed to in the open market are better than the guy that 2 years ago you said you needed to give 20 carries to every week. Like, I'm not saying they were right the first time, but when you reach those conclusions later, you should at least have a moment where you where it occurs to you, like, wow, maybe I shouldn't trust myself with this. Maybe I need to just reconsider some of the things that I've taken for a given, because maybe I was missing something. Maybe I was wrong somewhere. I think obviously Edwards-Helaire has been a disappointment, but he's not truly bad, and they're just kind of like they're making these decisions. I know because they think / hope that it's going to make the offense better in an area they've wanted to get better for years, but there's no actual sound theory or basis behind it. And it's like the Jaguars' run defense is bad. You knew who was ever going to get carries was going to run. So not to take credit from Pacheco, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire has run on better defenses than the Jaguars. It's not like Pacheco did something that Edwards-Helaire got a fair shot at and just failed to do. So I don't know. I think Pacheco is good enough, and the Chargers' run defense sucks. But when the judgment that the Chiefs have shown with their backfield management is so, in my opinion, completely indefensible, I don't know what to take for a given. I don't know what I can expect from someone out of that, someone that I consider, just unreliable, which I consider them. So I don't want to advise anyone to play Pacheco, but I will say, if he gets the carries, he's going to produce. It's easy mode when you're running the ball in the Pat Mahomes offense, and the Chargers' run defense sucks. So should be a good setup for whoever's getting the ball. It's just sometimes they just decide, let's give the ball to Jerick McKinnon. That it's an empty net. Let's try to miss it anyway by giving it to McKinnon here.
We love a hockey analogy on the pod.
You gotta have versatile analogies. You gotta be multidisciplinary to truly capture all the dimensions that we come across.
That's what I'm saying, man. So that's why we're so good. Take on this game, side to cover.
Yeah, I gotta pick the Chiefs, I guess. I don't want to bet against Herbert, but Chiefs pass rush too has been getting a little lively, so their defense might get better even from here. Like, they had a lot of new parts, a lot of rookies at corner, new safety, so they might kind of just get tougher pretty much every week from here.
Yeah, and that's definitely a concern for the Chargers. So yeah, I'm in on the Chiefs here as well, and then we'll wrap it up here. Niners, Cardinals. Niners 8-point favorites in this one. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's obviously is a neutral field, and also the status of one Kyler Murray, who things are still pretty much up in the air as far as he's concerned, and Colt McCoy listed on the injury report as well. That certainly doesn't help things. He's dealing with a bit of a knee, sounds like. So I think that kind of informs why the Niners are so heavily favored in this spot.
Did you say you had the nuclear take for this game? Something
Yes.
regarding. Okay. Did you want to save that yet? Or
You know what? I'll just lead off with it.
okay.
I think the Cardinals can win.
Okay. I was hoping for something a little more inflammatory, but yeah, I guess that's still bold, even if
I mean, they're
not
8-point
belligerent.
dogs. It's it wouldn't have been
It's bold. It's bold.
as good as saying Washington like covers the Philadelphia spread last week. That would have been real cojones. But no, I think that the Cardinals absolutely have the ability. I just think that Jimmy Garoppolo, as limited as he is and can be, I say why not when it comes to Arizona.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Mexico City. Is that like an elevation case? Is that like Denver or something like that? I guess it probably doesn't matter, but also it seems, John, one of us, our connection is suffering. I can't tell if it's you or me. Well, that seems bad. Um,
Yes.
Sorry, folks. I don't really know what to do other than let this
Boy,
buffer, I
this
guess.
internet,
Okay, there we go.
Ethernet, letting us down here, folks. The end. RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast presented by No House Advantage.